Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to go over my top 5 tips that I think every single Elise player needs to know. Now, my goal behind this video is to make you a better League of Legends player, as well as to give you a better understanding of the champion as a whole. If you have any questions for me, you can hit me up in the comments down below, as well as join the Discord that is going to be in the pinned comments. If you'd like to send me a direct message, I am more than happy to help you out. I put timestamps at every single point of my video. They're going to be both at the top of the page if you want to skip to the next tip, or in the scrolling bar. It is going to be segmented with the different tips. I am going to put the timestamps as well in the description, just so it is extremely a readable video for you guys. I do not want to waste any of your time. Next up, I heavily encourage you guys to add your own tips. As I'm a bit limited with this format, I don't like these videos running too long. I am just going to do these 5 tips. So if there are any Elise players that watch this video and you have a really good amount of experience, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below and maybe help out some new players that are just starting to pick up this new champion. So with all that out of the way, let's jump into tip number 1. Alright, and getting into tip number 1 for Elise, you really have to hammer down on her particular play style. It is very polarizing, it is very snowbally, but it can also be quite fun. She really relies on optimal vision and playing from the fog of war, as well as a pick style. How you augment this when you are playing Elise is, first of all, vision denial is extremely important. So getting things like an oracle lens is going to be highly efficient, because you are going to be able to set up picks in areas where there is a lot of traffic. Elise has a lot of early game dueling potential and has a lot of pick potential where she can throw out her whole combo from fog and really maximize her percentage base damages, or percentage HP damages, on the target in the particular order that they are intended, doing a Q in human form at the highest HP and doing the Q in the spider form at when the target has a lot of missing health. So when playing Elise, you should always be getting a crap ton of control wards and oracle lenses to really enable your invades as well as your picks. This is how you are going to snowball the games when playing Elise. Next, if you are someone that is consistently passive and farming the jungle and just trying to power farm, Elise really is not the jungler for you. You need to be an aggressive and strong player with a good understanding of where champions are going and what they are looking to do in the current map situation, and where you can set up ambushes and really provide a lot of value to your team with this pick. And that will wrap up tip number 1 for Elise. Alright, and getting into tip number 2 with Elise, we are going to talk about how she has extra protection when she is around minions. And what this provides you is something similar to what Yasuo has, and where he is stronger around minions in the same way Elise is stronger around minions as well. She is able to do a repel up in her spider form, where she can drop down on targets even if they are out of vision. This is going to enable her to first defensively get away if you are getting collapsed on by the enemy mid and junglers, say right here, as well as be extremely aggressive on enemies if there are minions up in the lane and you are able to maybe repel down to them to close a lot of distance on the enemy and set up your full pick potential. So always think of Elise as stronger when there are minions around. Now, with her playstyle of being pick and with her ability to get out of really sticky situations with her repel, you have a lot more strength when being inside of a jungle, because it provides both that vision denial that is so important for picks as well as those creep farms. So always look for duels and for picks in the jungle. This is just where you're going to have a little bit more power, and the time that they have to react is going to be less, as well as it is a more condensed area for them to it's going to be harder for them to dodge when they are in the jungle. So use these tips as a way to really get a good understanding of Elise and play to her strengths. Do not just be running down the lanes and A-ramming. This is not where Elise is going to snowball. And that will wrap up tip number 2. All right, and we're going to get into tip number 3 for Elise, and this is just going to be a basic ganking tip that I do not say whenever I point on a Smurf or a lower elo account. This is just such a horrible mistake that a lot of lower elo players make when they are first picking up Elise, or they are a little bit inexperienced, or maybe just not too good at the champion yet, and that is not closing as much ground as possible before throwing out a cocoon. This is particularly important when people are looking to dodge back and forth. If you are approaching a gank and you see the enemy kind of going back and forth, trying to dodge your E, close as much distance as possible, as they will allow you, as they are stepping back and forth. This is going to really allow you to hit your skill shots easier, as well as close the distance and make it a little bit more difficult. In lower elos, throwing out different animations might confuse the enemy into a flash with maybe something throwing out a Q or an auto attack. They might think it is a cocoon coming out and might look to flash away. So always look to use this when ganking a lane. If they're just running in a complete straight line and they're not doing any kind of dodges back and forth, you can look for that more of a max range cocoon. But as a basic rule of thumb, when ganking for Elise, you want to, first of all, you want to take the best possible angle, maybe coming from this way, and really look at how the enemy is moving and how you can best use your cocoon in the situation. If they're going to let you close distance, close as much distance as possible. If you're allowed to throw out your auto Q and hit them with the W and they're still moving back and forth, you can just go into spider form. It isn't really required to hit the cocoon. The cocoon is providing CC, but if the enemy is just CCing themselves by constantly trying to dodge your cocoon, it is already doing the job for you. So keep this in mind when you are doing that. Next up, when you are looking to gank, you do not have to use your repel offensively just to close the distance to a target at max range. This isn't going to be an effective way to look to engage the gank. You can use it post throwing out your spider or your human form combo, and then looking to gap close after they use one of their mobility spells or a flash. So keep this in mind when you're doing your ganks, and they will be a lot more successful. I know these are a little bit of the basics, but I know that predominantly my viewer base is in lower elo, and I see these as extremely common mistakes. So please make sure you are making these mistakes when you are looking to play Elise. And that will wrap up tip number 3. All right, and getting into tip number 4 with Elise, let's talk about objective control and her extremely strong objective control, which is very, very nice and something you really need to look to take advantage of when playing Elise because of her early strength and she's really required to snowball because she does fall off in the late game. So again, we want to go back to the number 1 tip and making sure that you have vision control over the objective as well. And if you didn't know, the reason why you have great objective control is because of your ability to spawn these spiders. They really assist you extremely well when taking objectives. First, with the Herald, it allows you to get those back hits, as well as they can tank the dragon when you are looking to fight them. Similar to Shaco, you really need to be exerting your pressure around the map. Since you have a decent clear speed, you should be able to get to objectives before the enemy jungler, and even if they are looking to take an objective at the same time as you just need to set up a vision trap with your control wards and your oracle lens and look to pick them off when they are looking to take objectives. So always look to control objectives early. Now, you have to look as well at the lane circumstances and what is going on with them. If you have lane priority in the bot and the mid lane, this is going to be a great situation for you because you can pretty easily take the dragon with the safety and the knowledge that your team will be the first to react. Your mid laner will come first because he is not too concerned about taking CS compared to the enemy mid laner that might be getting pushed under the tower. So it takes a little bit of time to get used to reading the different lane states. Obviously, you want the lane pushed all the way in, or maybe you see an enemy back timing with the bot lane and support, and your bot lane and support are still around. This is also a really good time to take an objective. That paired with the percentage damage that comes out of the Q on both of the different forms, as well as the good consistent damage that comes out of the Spiderlings, there is very, very little excuse to not have great objective control when playing Elise, and that will wrap up this tip. Alright, and getting into the final tip for Elise, I want to talk a little bit about team fighting and how you really should be looking to play out these different situations. Now, Elise thrives in chaos. She is going to struggle a little bit in front to back team fights where pick champions are not really the best. Now, before you get into any team fights, I want you guys to start identifying the highest value target that is going to give you the most return on investment of you going in on the enemy and putting yourself at risk. So, say there is a maybe a 2-2 Syndra from the mid lane, and then there is a 6-0 Ezreal in the back line. It is going to be a lot more important if you were able to get picks to take out that Ezreal if you are looking to dive in. Now, playing a pick champion that is squishy and is sometimes required to go in melee range, you want to watch for cooldown usage in different windows of extremely important spells. These spells include mostly CC and really high damage spells, particularly in lower elos when you have a lot of bad teammates. You want to use them as meat shields and use their ability to eat a lot of those CCs for you and then allow you to go in. You particularly want to be doing this a lot if you have a good amount of resources on you and you have snowballed that early in mid game. Some abilities that really come to mind would be a high damage ability, something like a Fizz ultimate, and then a really good CC ability, something similar to a Malzahar ultimate or a Nautilus Q into a passive auto that will hook you and then root you. You want to have those down and really look to play out the fight in a way where you can be at 100% efficiency. So always look for those cooldown windows where you have a little bit more potential to get picks. Second, if you are able to at all, if your team is listening to pings, looking for team fights around jungles, around choke points, around vision is always going to be a lot more beneficial to you. But if you're in a classic game of silver solo queue playing Elise, you are going to see a lot of just ARAM fights right down the middle. So again, always identify the highest value target. Wait for the bigger cooldowns to be used, using your shitty teammates as kind of meat bags and shields for you to really get the most out of your team fights. It is going to be the best way to play out team fights. Even if you have to play a little bit in the back line, maybe just throwing out a Q on certain targets, throwing out a W, maybe looking for a pick with your E, and then waiting for those big cooldowns and that big engagement to be used. It is going to be a beneficial way, a really good, easy way to start looking to team fight. If you are having a lot of struggles with them, is wait for engagements to go off. This is going to bring attention to your front line, and they're going to start throwing abilities at your front line. This is going to be great because then those are going to have obviously less abilities to throw at you, and this is just a great assassin play style where you want to be waiting for people to get very vulnerable by using all of their abilities, their defensives, and then again, whenever possible, when playing a kind of pick champion like Elise, you want to look for flanks. So these are my basic tips that I think anyone can use, and just basic concepts that can overall improve your team fighting, common things that I do not see you guys doing in bronze, silver, and gold. And that will wrap up my 5 tips, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And as always, guys, take it easy.